Well, morning, everybody. Welcome to another session where where we are showcasing not just our speakers but our partners as well. A partner of ours would be someone who really kind of gets, in particular, the whole sort of fuel, ignite, accelerate concept, how to really help you fuel your events exceptionally well, how to ignite your audience, and then how to accelerate that message long after the conference is gone. Everybody spends a lot of time, effort, energy in putting these kind of events together. And how do you ensure that your objectives are met, not just immediately after, but from a sustainability point of view? So this morning, we've got Merci Wilson with us from Better Place to Work. Um, a lot of you will know our mood barometer pretty well. And Better Place to Work is the fundamental is the sort of the company that produces these excellent kind of engagement tools like that. But we did want Merci to get on a call and just explain a little bit of the background around Better Place to Work. I mean, they have won numerous awards. They've been around for decades. Primarily helping companies with employee engagement, whether it's at a conference, after a conference, whatever sort of key objectives the company is really trying to sort of impose. Better Place to Work kind of facilitates that, so that you get the right amount of engagement around the challenges that present themselves. So yes, they've won numerous awards. One recently out of New York, out of Europe. They're a European-based company, but as we're all global these days, so we work with speakers and partners from all around the world. They're also cultural change specialists, that sort of pride themselves in moving the needle in that regard, and have worked with really big companies like Siemens, Sony, BASE, and numerous others to mention. So we've asked Mer to kind of deep dive a little bit into how this could help you run your conference better. So I'll ask her to join us. Merci herself has got a extensive corporate background, so she understands what it's like with large organizations, multinational ones too, like Anglo American, De Beers, and has had been in HR roles herself, and been in situations where has really realized the importance of the right culture and the right employee engagement. So over to you, Merci. Take us away.
Great. Thank you, Paul, and thank you for the lovely introduction. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for taking the time to join us today. And Paul, just the opportunity to showcase bp2w as well. So often when I say an even better place to work, people assume I'm a recruitment agency. And no, I don't do any recruitment, but we do work with teams within their organizations to try and make their workplace an even better place to work. So just very quickly, I'm just going to request screen share, and I'm just going to pull up a couple of slides, and those are just to keep me on track so that I don't talk your ear off all day. Okay. Perfect. Awesome. Can everybody see my screen? Any thumbs up? Perfect. Thank you. So I'm just going to pull across the side there. So basically today it's about mapping the mood, igniting the change, and accelerating the growth for each of your organizations. So I'm just going to minimize this. Sorry. Okay, so engagement signals that we cannot ignore within the workplace. Only 29% of South African employees are actively engaged in the workplace. This is not my stats, but what it does tell us that 71% of employees who get up on a Monday morning, drag themselves to work, are engaged within the work, are not engaged within the workplace. They are not happy. They are not excited to be there. They do it mostly out of necessity. Approximately 56% are exploring new opportunities. So let that sink in for a minute. 56% of the employees that you, as leaders within organizations, invest in, spend time developing, coaching, training. 56% of them are either on LinkedIn, on PNet, job boards, looking for alternative opportunities. That's a massive number. It's more than half of your workforce that are actively looking outside your organization for their next opportunity and their next big break. That's a significant number. And then nearly 1 in 5 report giving feedback and seeing no follow up. So, have you heard about survey initiative overload? We keep on doing surveys, employee wellness, employee engagement, culture surveys, but nothing gets done with the feedback. And this comes from the Gallup report 2024, where over 5 million people were surveyed. Okay, so when we as leaders, when we as HR fraternity read the room, what we're really hearing is, or looking and observing is, there's a lack of work ethic amongst our employees. We've got a bunch of poor performers, and these are all assumptions that we generally make. We assume that there's a skill competency gap within our workplace, and that's why our productivity is not where it should be. People are resistant to change, especially after COVID. We've seen many iterations of organizational restructuring, and you often hear leaders saying that people are just resistant to change. Things will settle down. Give them time. We often hear in the corridors some employees are inherently cynical or negative, and that impacts mood and the climate of the rest of us. Or there's no problem because there's nothing overt yet happening. There's no real negativity that we can feel, nothing tangible, and there has been no conflict with our employees. And then we also generally hear the sentiment, and I think it is especially prevalent in South Africa, with SAF Air going out on strike at the moment, the pilots going out on strike, with so many industrial relation challenges that we do have. Employees are always disgruntled about their pay or their perks or the work promotions that they're not happy with within the organization. So these are all our assumptions. But from a bp2w perspective, and that's where the partnership with USB comes in, bp2w actually takes the guesswork out of these assumptions that are generally made by organizations about their people. So we set the focus with purpose. By conducting a needs-driven diagnostic, we fuel your strategy with evidence-based facts that is responsive to our team's needs, foster continuous improvement, and create a culture where people feel heard, where they feel valued, and also where they feel motivated. So by conducting a 5 to 10 minute diagnostic with your individuals, we are able to pinpoint from a people perspective the strategic priorities. We then translate that data into action. We are able to track that impact over a period of time. And in turn, we are able to boost performance outcomes because we understand what the needs of our people are. We align learning with needs, real needs. So generally, we look at things like inclusivity, whether they're connected at work, that is your communication skills, well-being at work, that is both physical and mental, as well as emotional well-being, satisfaction at work, are there really pay gremlins that you need to sort out? Do people feel recognized? Sustainability, big on the global agenda at the moment. Do we actually walk what we preach in terms of green living? Safety at work, that's psychological safety as well as physical safety. And then unconscious bias, that speaks to the IND agenda, diversity, inclusion, all aspects of inclusivity within the workplace. So what do we do with that insight? Once we have that insight, we then move to activation. So the diagnostic is conducted, we analyze the data, we pinpoint those specific needs. It is team-based needs. as opposed to organizational based needs. And that way we are able to cascade it upwards. So we first look at a team, the core team. What about that core team is not resonating with the team? Is it communication? Because we do recognize where you put a person, there are individual needs. People are unique, and as a collective, their needs are also individual. We then structure a whole host of team activities within the teams to address those core needs. So, if communication has come up as an issue that is a challenge within a particular team, we address those challenges relating to communication. Another team may be inclusivity, or another team may have an issue regarding safety, for example. Once we address those individual team-based needs, we are able to cascade it up to an organizational ripple. And that organizational ripple says, as an organization at large, 80% of your employees do not feel as if they are included in the workplace. And that's where your strategic focus then needs to be realigned to our events and our interventions. So, if one of the outcomes is that training is it, or you're going to have a massive event to address communication, the data that we've gathered at the diagnostic phase is really what informs what speakers you have at your event, what sort of activities you have at the event. So, it is not management led interventions, it is employee need interventions that are then conducted within the workplace. So, how do we embed, empower, and expand? So, we do conduct regular pulse checks. If you were present at the January showcase, there was a demo that we did do. So, fueling it is by determining what that diagnostic tells us the need of the crowd is. And then, after the intervention, doing another pulse check to see if we have effectively addressed the need that has come out of it. So organizations using frequent pulse surveys see 41% higher engagement and demonstrate real-time responsiveness. Evidence-based interventions, quick structured activities significantly boost well-being, trust, and performance. So it doesn't always have to be a massive intervention where you need to lock down the entire organization, take people out of the out of the workplace for 2-3 days at a time. It could be as quick as 20-minute interventions that is incorporated into the weekly team check-ins to ensure that they are working on the challenge identified for communication, for example. So it's about practicing what the challenge is. And then finally, it's tracking key indicators over time to measure the return on investment and ultimately identifying emerging risks or opportunities before they occur. It's about integrating proven activities into company wide programs, leadership initiatives, and events, making culture change systemic. So it's not a once off intervention, it's about integrating the change over a period of time. And then ultimately, the famous formula that we work on, we fully subscribe to fueling our employees, igniting the interest, accelerating the growth, and ultimately that leads to sustainable impact and change from a culture perspective. And that is generally what I wanted to share with you. Very short, very quick, but I was hoping that we could have some discussion around it. Thanks, Paul.
Lovely, Mercy. Great presentation, and yeah, it does give us some nice further insights into what you're doing because there is a bigger picture. You know, when we throw out better place to when we throw out the mood barometer to our customers, I think it's really good that they have a much broader, a deeper understanding about the company behind it. Because I know Better Place to Work has been, I mean, instrumental. I've heard companies like Siemens, or they come back year after year after year. They describe your system as so easy to use, affordable. Like and what you're saying there now about these kind of light touch points, 20-minute interventions. There's just really no reason for not engaging and setting something up properly like this. So yeah, I mean, I just maybe like to open up to the team a little bit. Do we have questions? And of course, anybody on the call, do we have questions around, in particular, maybe how this can work effectively at conferences, or how could this relate more to our customers, to our stakeholders? Yeah, I just thought I'd throw it out there to the who's on the call this morning.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. And it's really about data driven from your employees, Paul. It's about understanding what their needs are, as opposed to we assume that they need this particular intervention. It just takes out that guesswork from a leadership perspective. And as I say, those you've reiterated, those interventions are absolutely critical because as opposed to doing a survey and people never getting feedback, they can actually see that feedback in practice on a week to week basis.
Mm. Yeah, and I mean, and relating it particularly to conferencing, I mean, isn't it good that you've got some sort of insights as to what your audience wants? I mean, there's a big drive now to almost like audience-led conferences where people are pitching up knowing that they've had a real stake in the content of what they're going to be hearing, as opposed to sort of, hoping, fingers crossed, that this is actually going to help them. And we're all time broke. So by sending out a survey like that, I love what you said. It increases it, by 41%. You're increasing audience engagement just by, taking the poll. We've got a question, and I think Clive's gone off mute now as well. We'll come over to him, but we've got a question from Kim, which I think could be relevant. How can this help our speakers, out there? It's, I can think of a few ways on how that could be. Mercy, is there anything that sort of pops to mind? I'm sure they could be utilizing some sort of surveys, perhaps in what the but maybe not. Let me not answer that for you. Hand it over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Kim, great question. I think from a speaker perspective, it just helps a speaker prepare so they don't necessarily go out into an organization, address a number of employees and the post and pray mentality. It's really about specifically targeting the needs. And if your audience has told you what they want to understand, what they want to learn more about it, the retention rate is going to be so much higher because you're speaking exactly to what they are worried about, what they don't quite understand. So you're able to connect your message to the outcomes of that session more effectively.
Mm. And a big thing if with our speakers is feedback, and they're constantly asking us, how did I do? Did I move the needle? How did it go? And we really try. I mean, we phone just about every single customer afterwards. We want to know too. But getting online, getting kind of surveys and serious data afterwards is sometimes a challenge for our speakers, and they get a little disappointed because they want to know. They're always trying to better their skills and do things, so they want to know all the feedback, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I guess you could easily get the audience to do a second poll, second touch point. So, okay, we had the conference. How are you feeling now? These were all things you felt before. After the conference, how are we feeling? Let's do the mood barometer again, and let's see where we are. And I guess based on that, we could give that feedback to the speaker to say, listen, the following things were absolutely addressed and helped, but there's still now a few gaps. Is there anything we could do? And I know some speakers that would be very happy to maybe create a series of videos or maybe a few slides or a few tips or pointers to be able to say, listen, I believe we didn't quite nail this part, but perhaps, in the weeks and months ahead, you could just apply these few things and see if that makes a difference. I guess all these things help speakers, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then also just making that feedback process a lot more seamless for the participants
Mm,
because often it is cumbersome to try and write a lot of feedback. So the quicker, the easier, the more accessible that feedback tool is, the easier you're going to be able to collate it. If you can guarantee it takes 5 to 10 minutes just to answer a couple of key and pointed questions, you are going to have a much higher ratio.
mm. So a few minutes, anonymous, easy to do, and then the audience feels like they've actually had a say in this from start to finish. Um,
Absolutely.
Clive, did you have a question? You went off mute.
Yes, yes. Hi,
Yeah,
everyone. Hi, Mercy. Good to
Hi,
see
Clive.
you
Same
again.
here. Good to see you.
Yes, no, no. I just wanted to find out. I mean, if you can give us a case study or just an example where a better place to work has worked quite well for a client. What were some of the key challenges that it flagged, right? And how did it assist in helping the company address those challenges? Just a practical sort of example with one or two clients where you came in and you identified that these were the challenges and what was that sort of journey process for the client?
No, absolutely. So, Clive, right in the beginning of my presentation, I threw up some of those assumptions. So, in
Mm,
a very recent client, in the beginning of the year, we had a couple of assumptions that people were just poor performers. They were not hitting their targets. And as they were rolling into the new financial year, management wanted to address it. Once we conducted the diagnostics, we actually pinpoint that well-being was an issue, and it was both physical, mental, and emotional well being that proved to be a challenge. There were indicators, but as leaders or as organizations, we tend to overlook the individual within a team that makes up the team and ultimately the various teams that make up the organization. So, from a practical implementation perspective, we did implement a whole host of well-being initiatives within this particular team. They are a national team operating in all our major cities, a group of 59 people. So, for example, virtual activities, when you take your dog for a walk or you playing outside with your kids on the lawn, some soccer, just have your phone with you, record the real-time data. It then feeds to a cloud-based app that we did introduce, and ultimately they were walking from city to city, visiting each other. So there was a competition between the Cape Town team, the Johannesburg team, and the Durban team to collect their personal data to understand how they're improving their physical well-being and inadvertently also improving their emotional and psychological well-being. So those are practical tools or practical applications that come out of the diagnostics that we do. So we don't just then leave the teams. A current team that I am working with, the perception was also resistance to change. And it actually turns out that it is a leadership challenge, that a new leader has joined the organization and doesn't necessarily understand how to live the values of the organization because his team members do have tenures of 24, 20 years within the organization. So, what it has resulted in is real targeted interventions with the leader to bring him on board into the organizational culture as quickly as possible, but also not losing him as an individual. Does that give you a sense of?
Yes, no, it definitely does. I think the key takeaway is how you're turning the perceptions, because it's easy to have that perception, right, of what could be going wrong or what could the challenges be, right? But you come in and you turn that perception and actually get actual data that often, challenges that perception.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, thank you. Very clear.
It's factual. It becomes
Factual.
factual. Yes.
Mm.
Mercy, would you agree with Melissa's comment there now when she's saying, in your experience? Oh, have you got your hand up there, Melissa? Do you want to? I just basically want to just something that she'd said that the main challenge with standard company surveys is lack of action. Um, would you kind of concur with that in your experience? And what she's saying about better place to work is that we don't feel that's the case here. It drives meaningful change. You also sometimes plug into some of our speakers to have those interventions. It's easy when there's a conference coming up to be able to make some recommendations. So we see a solid partnership there, and we love what you're doing. But would you agree with that? I mean, I think I've heard that many times as well. There's numerous surveys, lack of action, nothing seems to happen. Is that a thing? And then we'll go back to
It's
you, Melissa.
I would say it's a thing, and the Gallup reports tells us year on year that it is a thing. So 1 out of 5 in the 2024 Gallup report, it did say that 1 out of 5 employees say that my company has done an employee engagement or climate or culture survey, but we don't know what's happened to the information. So feedback as an initial step is also a challenge that we do experience. It's not in all instances, Paul, but it is in most instances. So you see it in about 80% of the case. And the challenge is not necessarily that the company doesn't want to do anything about it or they don't know. It's often, how do you tackle such a big beast? So, how do you systematically apply those changes? And that's why our focus is really from a team perspective, cascading it to an organizational level, as opposed to organizational challenge. And then everybody does command performance in terms of fixing it or impacting the lives of people within the organization.
Thank you. I think well answered. So even though 1 in 5 so it's only 1 in 5, we could say, has reported that this, you feel it's a little bit more deep rooted than that. Mel, you had your hand up, but the hand went down. So I just, but if you did want to say something,
Thanks. And Mercy, thank you so much for that presentation. Always so insightful. Also really appreciate your presence here. I do have a question. You said that about 71% of employees are disengaged. Now, in your observation, what is the common driver of this disengagement? Because I don't feel like people just get bored of coming to work or they need more salaries, but what is sort of the common and key driver of this disengagement?
Mel, my personal studies, my personal investigations, my research actually shows that it is lack of aligned goals or vision. So most people that do become disengaged do not understand how their role impacts the broader picture within the organization. So it is clarity of understanding of what the vision, the mission of the organization is, and how their particular role impacts it. And I can say probably over the last 6, 7 months, that has unanimously been some of my findings, that not everybody in the organization knows what the travel of direction for the business is.
What a great question, and what a stunning observation, Mercy. Mel, did that answer the question? Did you want to say anything else around that?
No, it did answer the question, and it makes perfect sense. I think it is quite a big beast to get everyone in the organization aligned with the vision, the mission, and the purpose, and to get them on the same bus. So I can imagine with leadership, you have a lot of conversations, critical conversations with leadership, where they need to move the needle in terms of getting everyone aligned with their purpose. And like I said, it's a big beast. So it's not a one-day challenge at all. But yeah, thank you, Mercy. You did definitely answer my question. Very insightful again. Thank you so much.
Pleasure, Mel, and really, really great question. I think everybody wants to go to work and know what impact they make. And ultimately, the organization wants to understand the impact that they make within the economy, the impact that they make within their service center as well. So, yeah.
Because it is hard, isn't it, Mercy? I mean, there's a lot of there's some great strategies, great thought put into the strategies. There's rollouts of these strategies, but yet sometimes the blueprint doesn't really filter down as well as it should, or filter across the whole organization. And yeah, as you say, not an easy thing. So are you finding you're having more of an impact with these kind of team groups that you set up at Better Place to Work, and it is more impactful?
No, absolutely, absolutely. So Paul, it's really important if you're working at a team level, what is the mandate of this particular team? Why do you exist within the mothership? And then as an individual, to be able to answer that question, how do I contribute in delivering on that mandate? I think it is a critical component.
Mm. And Mel was just sort of commenting in the end. I just want to add that I don't think anybody wakes up in the morning thinks of underperforming, and I agree. And thanks for bringing the humor to this Monday morning in South Africa. Anyway, Kwame's got a question from Ghana. Can it gauge the mood of attendees during a live conference and provide real-time conference to the speaker itself? So that's a brave one, isn't it?
It is a great one.
Yeah, great and brave. But yeah, but isn't that the point? With our audiences, we've got this one opportunity for the speaker. The speaker doesn't wake up, to Mel's point, thinking, "Oh, how can I underperform today at the conference?" Well, at least I hope they don't. They certainly wouldn't be 5-star if they did. So going in with the assumption that the speaker really wants to make an impact, they only have 45 minutes or an hour, or maybe it's a workshop for 2 hours. Yeah, I mean, they would probably welcome something like this. But how easy would it be to put this together? And you kind of demonstrated something at the showcase, did you?
Yes, absolutely. So that's a really great question, because I think the basics of bp2w is really that it is real time. So all the diagnostics, the feedback, the reports are all real time. So as people complete the feedback, we are able to see how it populates and changes, thereby giving you the ability to assess the mood. I think it is also intended to support the outcomes of what you're trying to achieve during a live conference. So do an assessment just before you kick off, do an assessment just post the the conference while it's still fresh in the attendees, and just see where you've actually shifted the needle. So yeah, Kwame, it is a really, really big advantage of bp2w platform, that the diagnostics are real time, so you're able to gauge exactly how you've shifted the needle within your 45 minutes an hour slot.
Well, great. Merci, I think I'll hand you over to Kathy, but really appreciated you having on the call, and to everybody else on the call as well. It's certainly a gauge that you didn't all wake up this morning thinking about how I can underperform today. To the contrary, we're all here to try and make a difference to our customers, to the conferences out there. And yeah, I thought a really engaging conversation and presentation. Thank you. Over to you, Kathy.
Thank you, Merci. That was great. And I really do like the sort of the philosophy that we also have, the FIA, the Fuel, Ignite, Accelerate. That shows a great partnership and that we can work together. We have the same views on how we want to impact our customers and, just be able to have something to give them. And I think, as Paul said, the speakers do really want to have feedback, whether it's negative or positive, because they want to also better how they deliver their keynotes and how they can actually, just give the customers what they need. Because I do think, as you were saying, people work in silos and they don't have that confidence. So once, Better Place to Work comes in and actually looks at that, then there will be a lot that comes out after that. And then people can also see, it still hasn't touched on what I am looking for. And then from that mood barometer, we can, determine what it is, and then be able to maybe go back and do another, keynote, maybe a different speaker or something, and then try and target what still is left over, really.
Absolutely.
So yes, that was really good and very insightful. Thank you so much. And next week, Andy Preston will be coming online. He speaks on sales, and he's one of our really, really long-term speakers. And we do have a lot of faith in him that he does, deliver the message and does help people with their sales. And thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Thanks.